Welcome back to the Mighty Blues. Didn't even do me proper intro there. That's how dejected I feel after that performance today. Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron. Instant match reaction. Everton 1, or should I say Newcastle 3, Everton 1 at St James's Park. Another defeat for Everton. Frank Lampard becomes the first Everton manager since 12 managers ago, whoever that was, to lose their first Premier League game in charge of Everton. A real must-not-lose game today. Some would say it was a must-win, but I think every Evertonian would have sat down at 7 o'clock this evening before tonight's game and said that if it's not a must-win, it's absolutely a must-not-lose. And we've only gone and lost it today. And not only lost it, but lost it quite convincingly, didn't we? Let's be perfectly honest. There was very little fight. There was very little desire. There was very little quality. There was very little determination. And whilst we had a couple of injuries, which were obviously mitigating factors in the sense that, the team had to change early on and we had to make a couple of changes. And as typical with Everton, the injuries that we get are always injuries to key players and players that have a massive impact on the outcome of results. An injury is never good to see any player get injured, but how many of Everton's key players have to pick up injuries? Now, that's 3 games on the bounce. Villa, we had Takore, obviously on Saturday against Brentford, Ben Godfrey, and now today, Yerry Mina and Damari Gray. I mean, surely it can't just be down to bad luck. How many fucking times do we have to have key players picking up injuries in really, really important games? But not only the injuries, look, Yerry Mina and Damari Gray both gone off by the time that we went 1-0 up, and it was 35 minutes when the pair of them obviously had to leave the field through injury, and yet for the remainder of the game, it was very much one team who desperately wanted the win and desperately needed the 3 points, and another team who desperately needed the 3 points but didn't really look like we desperately needed the 3 points. Almost looked like we weren't that bothered and we weren't really that prepared, that well prepared to fight or to show that desire or show that commitment or put ourselves about or work as hard as Newcastle. I mean, we were completely outplayed today. Let's have it right. We were completely outplayed. I mean, it could have been 4 or 5-1 that towards the end of the game. They hit the post, after they went 3-1, which could have made it 4-1. Defensively, we were abysmal. There isn't one defender in this team, other than the 2 that are out injured, ironically, that deserve to be at this football club. None of them are good enough. We'll spare Jared Branthwaite, despite the fact he wasn't very good today. We'll spare him because he's a young player. But Seamus Coleman, Michael Keane, Mason Holgate, get rid of them all. They're not good enough to be at this football club. They're simply not good enough. Defensively, they're woeful. We made Joe Linton look like fucking Pele today, and he's not a very good footballer. Saint Maximan's a good player, but many a Premier League wingers have proven, defenders have proven that if you can get him underneath and you can, you can deal with him, then you can certainly nullify him. Today we allowed him to run riot. Seamus Coleman is an experienced Premier League fullback. Not good enough to play for Everton. Yes, he's a legend and he's captained the club and he's been here for the club and all of this, that and the other, but sentiments can get out the fucking window. He's not good enough to play for Everton. You've just signed a right back there. I know Frank Lampard didn't sign Nathan Patterson, and some people will say, Patterson isn't ready or this, that and the other, but get him in there because he surely can do better than Seamus Coleman, because Seamus at the minute is atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. Mason Holgate, Michael Keane, abysmal. Absolutely abysmal. The midfield were awful again. Considering Newcastle play a 4-3-3 and very much have, a midfield that work hard and get about the pitch and win the ball and battle and fight and show that desire. To combat that with Andre Gomez, who again was back to his typical self, wasn't he? It was clear that Saturday was just a cameo. It was back to the typical I'm not really going to do much again performance by Andre Gomez. And Alanu wasn't particularly great either and was completely outrun by a midfield that just wanted it more than we did, but also by a midfield that was certainly, more packed out. There was an extra man in there. They were working harder, and it's just really soul-destroying, isn't it? It's really soul-destroying to watch that type of performance, especially after what a performance it was on Saturday. We sit here and we say, you know, the confidence and the momentum we'll take from Saturday's game into this one. And even before Damari Gray went off injured and Yerry Mina went off injured, yes, we were well within the game, of course we were, and yes, we were trying to move the ball around, but our passing from minute 1 to minute 90, including that 20-minute spell that, you know, everybody was on the pitch and there was no injuries, was woeful. Absolutely woeful. We couldn't pass the ball 5 yards. And we can sit here all we like and talk about the manager, talk about Rafa Benitez, talk about Carlo Ancelotti, talk about Frank Lampard. These are Premier League footballers and they can't pass a ball 5 yards. It's fucking the basics. We can't play this nice, one-touch, lovely football if your players are shite. It's as simple as that. And you could see what Lampard was trying to implement. He was trying to implement the type of performance that we put in on Saturday. But Frank Lampard will learn fairly quickly that that type of performance... that we put in on Saturday won't be able to be replicated game in, game out, because these players aren't good enough to do it. They'll have the odd game where they show it and the odd game where they're good enough and they'll be on top, but most of the time they can't. How can you have Premier League footballers that can't pass a ball 5 yards? It's fucking atrocious. It's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing. And I don't get it. I really, really don't get it. Listen, you know, I put very little blame on the manager today because, again, I've seen a performance which is pretty vintage of this Everton team, isn't it? I think back to, like, the WWE when The Undertaker used to do his vintage elbow drop, or Randy Orton used to do his vintage moves, and the commentators always go, vintage Orton or vintage Undertaker. This is vintage Everton. I felt like screaming out vintage Everton during that game because that's what we do. That's what these players do. They turn up 1 week and they put in a decent performance and they give you a bit of hope and you think, do you know what, we'll go into the next game really, really confident. And they turn up the next week and it's back to the same, utterly dreadful themselves. Half of this squad shouldn't be anywhere fucking near Everton Football Club. They don't deserve to be near here, and they've had many a chance under many a manager and have fucking failed many a manager as well. And I honestly, I don't understand how any Evertonian can watch that game tonight and think that we'll be okay. I really, really don't. I mean, if it was a close game and Newcastle had beaten us with let's say the game ended 2-1 and they'd scored another dodgy own goal, but we'd got at them and we'd really pegged them back and we'd had chances and we'd missed clear chances and you were sitting here going, do you know what, we were unlucky there. I'd sit here and say, we've lost a must-win game, you know, but... at least we showed something. At least there was a bit of effort. At least we were close to getting back into it and we just missed out. We were absolutely battered today. We were played off the park by a Newcastle team who are shite. Let's get it right. Shite. Utter shite. And they played us completely off the park. Now, how can any of us sit here and say we're not worried about relegation? I sat here 3-4 weeks ago before Frank Lampard come in and said, I'm worried that if these players get dragged into a fight, they won't have the bottle, the desire, the commitment, or, if we're being quite frank, the pure being asked to get themselves out of that fight. And this last week has showed us that even when a new manager comes in, there's a buzz behind the team, there's a buzz behind the manager. We have a great performance at home against a Premier League side. We can still very, very, very likely turn up only a matter of days later and put in another shithouse performances. Absolute shithouse performance. And the injuries don't help, of course they don't. As I've said before, we're the most unluckiest team in world football. Don't give a shit. We're the most unluckiest team in world football when it comes to injuries. You know, not only have you got Damari Gray out, you've got Abdoulaye Doucouré out, you've got Ben Godfrey out, you've now got Yerry Mina out. I mean, how anybody thinks we're winning another Premier League game with Yerry Mina out for however long he is out for, I don't know. All as we can hope is that it's nothing serious and he'll be back for Saturday, because a defensive three of Seamus Coleman, Michael Keane and Mason Holgate aren't winning a fucking Mars bar in the corner shop, never mind a game of footy, because the three of them are fucking woeful, absolutely woeful. And we have truly now been dragged into a battle that I am afraid we won't get out of. And that's nothing against the manager, and that's not to be negative. And I know some people will go, oh, you're being negative. There's loads of football to be played. Get behind the team. Obviously, I'll get behind the team. Obviously, I'm well aware there's loads of football to be played. Obviously, I'm well aware that things can change in an instant. We have 2 good results, and all of a sudden things change. But this game today was a real sort of benchmark for me, is to say, right, where are we now? We've had a great win on the weekend, so there's no excuse for a lack of confidence or a lack of momentum. We've got a new manager. Yes, we had injuries early on in the game, that's fine, but there was still a lack of responsibility, a lack of desire, a lack of ideas, a lack of care, a lack of commitment, and more importantly, a team there that went out in an absolute mustn't-lose game against another side who knew it was a mustn't-lose game, and only one of those sides today wanted to win that, and it was Newcastle. And this is why I think we're in deep trouble this season, because Frank Lampard, Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, Carlo Ancelotti, Rafael Benitez, my nan, anybody else could stand on that touchline. I don't think this group of players has got the fucking bollocks to drag us out of this situation that we're in. Newcastle are now a point above us, by the way. 1 point above us. We all sat here 2 or 3 months ago. Well, I sat here 2 or 3 months ago and said Newcastle are down. Absolutely down. 100% they're down. They won't come back. They're a point above us. A point above us. Burnley have just drew with Manchester United. West Ham thankfully beat Watford, which is fucking, again, an absolute genius result for Everton. But we currently sit 16th in the Premier League, 3 points above Norwich, who have won a couple of games on the bounce and have got Palace at home tomorrow. They'll be full of confidence. Only 4 points above Watford. 5 points above Burnley. And even if Watford and Burnley do go down, have Norwich got more confidence than we have at the moment? Yes. Are Norwich playing better football and winning games and we're not? Yes. Let's not forget, people go, we're not going down, Cam. It's not one team that goes down. If it was one team that went down, I'd say, do you know what? Fair enough. We probably won't go down because Watford are abysmal and Burnley are struggling. 3 teams go down. 3 teams. Can anybody seriously look at the Premier League at the moment and say that there's 3 worse teams than Everton? Can anybody seriously look at the Premier League at the moment and confidently say, yeah, Everton won't be one of those 3 teams? Because if you can, then I want some of your positivity, because I don't know where you get it from. I really don't. One of those potential worst teams than Everton has just turned up today and played us off the park and beaten us comfortably. And we made a good 4 or 5 of their players look like fucking world-class footballers. World-class. And they're not. They're really not. Because they're in their position because they're not. They're in the position that they're in because they're not very good at football. Semi's right. The teams around us are beating us. Watford beating us. Okay, we beat Burnley at home, but we've got them to play at Turf Moor. Newcastle beating us. Norwich beating us. Frank Lampard has got an absolutely monumental task on his hands, and a task that I'd love to sit here and say I'm confident he'll be able to, complete or, do well in, whatever you want to say. But I'm not. I'm confident that Frank Lampard is the right man to take Everton forward. I am. I think he suits Everton. I think it was the right appointment. But, as I said before, at this point, I don't know if any manager in football would be able to get results out of this team at the moment. Yes, we lost a couple of key players. I think, to be fair, I have to criticise the manager where I see it, and I don't think Dele Alli should have come on for Damari Gray. I think it should have been either Dominic Calvert-Lewin, El Ghazi or Iwobi, if I'm being honest, because Dele Alli isn't a winger. He's not quick enough to be a winger. He isn't quick enough with his feet. He didn't play particularly well today. Again, I'm not going to go in on him too much because it was his debut and he was thrown into a difficult circumstance, but that should never have been the substitution. That was the substitution that everybody was dead excited to see, but if we're being completely honest with ourselves, it was the wrong substitution. You don't bring off an attacking winger for an attacking midfielder who doesn't really play on the wing and hasn't got as much threat as what Damari Gray has. Why not bring on El Ghazi in that situation? Somebody who's going to run at players, create, opportunities. Again, somebody that's hungry. And then bring Dele Alli on in the midfield or later on in the game. Why not bring Calvert-Lewin on and push Richarlison to the wing and play Dom up front? It was a poor substitution for me. I don't think it's a bad signing. I don't think the performance is everything to go by. I don't think we should sit here and go, oh, he's awful, is that and the other, because again, it was a difficult situation. But that was a poor substitution by Frank Lampard for me. You don't replace an attacking winger with an attacking midfielder who's got nowhere near as much pace. It doesn't make sense. It made sense for us wanting to see Dele Alli and for him coming on and getting his debut and us all being like, oh my God, it's Dele Alli. But it was a silly substitution in my opinion. And yeah, as I said, I just don't know. I just don't know. Everyone, I seriously wasn't impressed with any of them today. Anthony Gordon worked hard in the first half, battled, and to be fair, Anthony Gordon probably saved us from conceding an extra couple of goals. You know, that chance that John Joe Shelby has where he wraps his foot around the shot and Anthony Gordon just comes in and nicks it and gets a touch and it goes to Jordan Pickford. That's a goal if Anthony Gordon doesn't put the pressure on him, because John Joe Shelby scores them for breakfast, dinner and tea every week if he gets them chances. So that would have been a goal. So Anthony Gordon, I thought, worked hard. But other than that, the entirety of the back line, dreadful. You know, Damari Gray, when he was on the pitch, his touch was off. He almost seemed like a player who wasn't fit or had a problem going into this game and was risked. And if that's the case, why? When you've got the options we had on the bench, there was no need to risk him. If that's not the case, then obviously that's nothing we can do. Yerry Mina, I love Yerry Mina. He's so important to this Everton team, and we saw that on Saturday against Brentford. And we saw it for the opening 15 minutes of today's game as well. He puts his body in the line. He makes himself a, he makes himself a nightmare. He's a really solid defender. But how long can we keep putting up with such an important player, a player that we know has to start week in, week out, coming in, playing the odd game, and then being out for however long he's going to be out for? As I said, hopefully it's nothing serious. But if he's out for a matter of months again, a decision has to be made about Yerry Mina and his future, because we can't rely on him. That Kel says in the comments, it's time to move on from Mina, way too unreliable. It's disappointing because he's fantastic. He's absolutely fantastic. He's a brilliant defender. He's exactly what we need. He's much better than anybody else we've got in that position, and everybody else is much better when he's in there. But you can't rely on a player that is constantly injured and constantly, is going down and having to go off and spending time on the sideline. You can't rely on him. You simply can't, and that's so disappointing, because now you're looking ahead and thinking, well, if Mina's out for Leeds, are we going to have a back four of Coleman, Keane, Mason, Holgate as three of that back four? Because if we do, Leeds will run fucking rings around us, because the three of them are utter dross, and shouldn't be anywhere near Everton. They shouldn't. Seamus Coleman's great, and he's been here for a while, and he's given us all for Everton, and again, I thank him for that, and I think he's brilliant, but that sentiment doesn't come into play. He shouldn't be starting games for Everton. He's not good enough. He's not good enough anymore. Whether he was 5 years ago or not, irrelevant. He's not good enough anymore. Mason Holgate has never been good enough. And Michael Keane, for the 28-year-old centre-half who's been here 5 years, to still play the way he does and make some of the decisions he makes, fuck him off as well. I just, again, I really, really, really don't. I just don't know where we go from here, and I want to have all this belief, and I want to have all this faith, and I want to have all this confidence and this desire and this commitment towards the manager, and I want to sit here and be positive and say, it was a one-off, this, that, and the other, and look at how good we can be. I really want to say all of that, but unfortunately, as we said on Monday, Saturday's performance against Brentford was an anomaly. We haven't played like that for years. And how silly of us was it, and specifically me, to believe that we could play like that again. 2 games on the bounce a matter of days later. How silly of it was it for me to expect this team of fucking professional Premier League footballers who are paid thousands of pounds a week to be able to pass a ball 5 yards. 5 yards. Not asking them to be fucking Neymar and take everyone on and rainbow flick everyone and dink it over the keeper. What I'm asking is to be able to pass a ball 5 yards, simple passes, deal with pressure from a team that, let's be honest, are utterly abysmal and have been shite all season. And we couldn't. We couldn't do it. We're a point above this Newcastle team now, only a couple of points above Norwich, who have got Palace at home tomorrow, and we'll be looking at Everton thinking, we can get out of this situation as well. Where does our next 3 points come from? The only little bit of sort of positivity I'm holding on to is, I think that we're abysmal away, as we have been for years. The year under Ancelotti with no fans in the stadium is an exception. Our away record is disgraceful. It's absolutely disgraceful. For however long I've been born for, it's been disgraceful. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't pick up another point away from home this season. And that means that there's heavy reliance on our home games. And the only thing I can sort of cling on to is the atmosphere at Goodison Park. Lampard getting much more out of the players at home at Goodison than he does, away from Goodison, and putting in similar performances to the one against Brentford every time we play at Goodison. But that ultimately will be determined by Saturday. We'll know this time next week whether or not that's the case or not, depending on how we play against Leeds. And then that puts all of the pressure on home games then for us to win. I just, as I said, listen, each to their own. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. Josh, don't say that, mate. Please don't say that. If you need anybody to talk to, then jump in my DMs and we'll have a little chat. Or there's hundreds of people that'll sit down and have a little chat with you. Thousands of people, in fact. There's people to go to. And I know it's bad, mate, but honestly, that isn't the solution. Drop us a DM on Twitter and we'll have a chat, mate. We'll have a chat. Nice one, Hernandez, by the way. I can see all the admin stuff you're doing in the chat. But yeah, I just don't know. Mr. Titler says you were way over the top on Saturday. Maybe I was, because of I actually thought that this team would come into this game with confidence, with momentum, with a little bit of something about them, thinking, you know what, we can get a result here. But as I said, there was only one team that wanted to win that game, and it was Newcastle. And considering that was a must not lose for Everton, that for me is dreadful, to say that most of these players didn't look like they knew the importance of this game. And I know the manager's come out and said there's lots more football to be played and the season doesn't end on this, the season isn't defined by these next two games, and I get that and I understand that. However, it still doesn't take away from the fact that we needed to get something out of this game, and we didn't. Josh, it's heartbreaking, mate. It's absolutely it's heartbreaking. I agree. He says I completely understand, mate. But honestly, it's not the end of the world. It isn't the end of the world. You know what? I know I say all the time it's an addiction and you can't walk away, but it is, as Amanda says, it's only football, mate. You are more important. You mean more than Everton, and don't let these overpaid bunch of knobheads to get to you that much. I know it gets to us all and it's hard and it's easier to say that, but honestly, you've got an amazing life ahead of you. I don't even know how old you are or where you're from, but you've got an amazing life ahead of you, and Everton, one day we'll all just learn to say, yeah, we lost again, have we? Yeah, fuck it. Let's go and do something else with our lives to make us happier. And I know we all live and breathe Everton, mate, but honestly, there's it's not. It isn't everything, and we're all disappointed, we're all upset, but definitely drop me a message on Twitter, mate, and we'll just have a non-Everton conversation about other things just to get your mind off things. But yeah, as I said, shocking. Key says Allardyce in. Listen, I don't particularly put it on the manager. I think he made a bad substitution with the Dele Alli stuff. I don't think Dele Alli should be coming on. I really don't. Again, maybe coming on later on in the game, but not for Damari Gray at that point. He's not a winger. Dele Alli isn't a winger. He isn't a winger. And you can still be a physio, Josh. You still can, and hopefully you become a physio, and then half of our players won't get the fucking injuries they get. Honestly, mate, it's not worth it, mate. It isn't. Definitely drop us a message though, and I'll have a chat. But yeah, as I said, I don't, other than the Dele Alli substitution, which I thought was baffling. Don't blame him for putting Donny van de Beek on. I thought it was the right substitution. We were losing control of the game, and we needed another midfielder to come on and get that control back. So I've got no issue with that. Obviously, we were forced into Branthwaite coming on. We were forced into into making that decision. So, and tactics wise, do I particularly blame the manager? I don't think you can. Does anybody see anything that Frank Lampard done wrong today that you could put direct blame on him for? Because I personally don't. I don't. He started pretty much the same team that started against Brentford, albeit with the exception of Mikalenko being out. Obviously, Godfrey was out as well, but Mina played the majority of the game against Brentford. And having Andros Townsend at left wing back shouldn't have made that much of a difference to the team. And yes, we had injuries and we had to move the team around and the players around, but that last 15-20 minutes was just dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. How we, how we weren't pushing for an equaliser before it went to 3-1 is beyond me. Absolutely beyond me. We were playing it round the back. We were playing it round the midfield, and we can talk about Richarlison's lack of movement, or the lack of movement from Dele Alli, but who's taking responsibility? Who's going to sit there and put the game on their shoulders? I know Anthony Gordon's done it a lot recently, and Anthony Gordon started to do it in the first half today, so I'm not going to put it on Anthony Gordon. But who else in that team is thinking, do you know what? I'm going to grab this game by the scruff of the neck here, and I'm going to be the difference between us winning and losing. No one does that. No one brings that, and that's why I said it, I think a couple of weeks ago when we were linked with Lampard. I said I don't think the manager is as big of an issue as the players. I really, really don't. I don't trust this set of players to get us out of this situation. I really, really don't. I don't think they've got the bottle. I don't think they've got the desire, and I don't think they've got the quality. And doesn't matter what managers on the dugout. Doesn't matter what managers on the sidelines. Some games they'll be motivated for and they'll play well, but other games they will simply turn up and shit out their way through 90 minutes, and that's exactly what they've done. Exactly what they've done. No leaders. No commitment, no desire. As I said, the entire back line should never put an Everton shirt on again. Don't care how long they've been here or how good they've been over the years. They're fucking shite. No pace in the midfield. I thought Van der Beek, again, I'm not going to sit here and have a go at him, but let's be honest, he didn't do anything when he come on. Dele Alli, there was glimpses, there was moments, but as I said, it was the wrong substitution at the wrong time. Branthwaite proved, I think, that he's not a consistent Premier League starter. To anybody wanting to start him week in, week out, he showed why he's not good enough. But again, difficult circumstances, and yeah, I just don't get it. I honestly, I really don't know where we go from here. Leeds is now massive. You can talk to me all you like about there being 17 games left and this, that and the other. Look at the games that we've got coming up in the next. So the way we're playing at the moment, let's look at our fixtures. We can talk all we like about 17 games. 17 games left, loads of time, this, that and the other. Just lost 3-1 today to a dreadful Newcastle team. So we've got Leeds at the weekend. Southampton away, difficult game. City at home, we're not winning that. We'll skip Bournemouth for a minute. Tottenham away, we ain't winning that. Wolves at home, they're doing really well at the moment. Watford away, could be a massive game in the relegation battle. West Ham away, Man United at home, Palace at home, again, really good side. Liverpool away, Chelsea at home, Leicester away, Brentford at home, and then final game of the season, Arsenal away. So, there is, plus I think we play Burnley in and around there somewhere as well, when that's postponed. We've still got to play City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, Leicester, Man United. And then you've got, on top of that, West Ham, Wolves, who are two teams fighting for Europe. Where are the... it's only a matter of time before we can... what else we can say? Loads of games left to play, though. Loads of games left to play. Where are the wins coming from? Where are the points coming from? I agree with me, by the way. You can't approach the Prem thinking if a team wins the same team and formation every game because one injuries to opposition. Case in point today, we need to start three midfielders. I agree, mate. I agree. Falkenberg says Cam passing was awful, but do you think the movement or lack of the ball was an issue? A lot of times we'd lose possession. There's no option for the man. Yeah, I do think the movement was an issue. I do. But I think some of the passing, and this is becoming an issue with Everton, is it's not even just the passing, under pressure. It's not even when you're looking at it and you're thinking, oh, there's no movement there. There's absolutely no movement. Sometimes a defender will have the ball. There'll be no one around him. There'll be an Everton player 5 yards in front of him, and he'll kick it out for a throw-in. And you think, how the fuck do these Premier League footballers, how are they that bad? How are they that bad? And I know people are saying we'll get points and got to be positive and you've got to think on the right side. There's loads of football to be played and we'll get points and this, that and the other. But I look at that today and I think, that was a team against that was a game against a team that were in a similar situation to what we're in, and knew that if they turned up and give everything, and battled and showed that fight and showed that desire, they could get a result out of this game. And they did exactly that, and we didn't do that. And that's what's upset me the most today, is if we'd have lost this game, as I said earlier, on a pardon me, on a silly goal, or we'd missed a couple of chances, or we actually looked like equalising, or we were going forward and we looked good and we'd just been unlucky at City, and say, well, do you know what? We've lost, which isn't great, but positive signs, it's looking good for the future. We go again against Leeds. But you've watched the game there where we've been completely outplayed and outclassed by a Newcastle side that aren't very good. And Dean says, in my opinion, it's a big confidence problem. If these players can't take confidence from beating Brentford 4-1 in the fashion we did on Saturday, then what are they going to take confidence from? What will it take to give these players confidence? Can I message you on Insta, says Josh? Yes, mate, message us on Insta. It's Mighty Blues EFC. Drop us a DM and we'll have a little chat after this, my mate. Even Gray struggled tonight before he went off. He did, which makes me think, did he have a little bit of a problem beforehand? Falkenbeek says, yeah, I do think Donny van der Beek will improve on midfield. He starts against Leeds over Gomez for sure. And Ander says, you also saw Van der Beek yelling at players to move. This is his first match. Exactly. That's how frustrated he clearly is at the rest of the team. As he's been at the club for 5 minutes and he's yelling at players to move and to show for balls. And why though? Why? When the movement was so good, the other day, and when we were so fluid and we were creating chances and scoring goals, why is 3 days later it all so different? I don't get it. I do not get it. And yeah, as I said, for me, I just don't know where we go from here. An abysmal performance, an abysmal result. I really, really, really think Frank Lampard has got an absolute monumental job on his hands now. Monumental job on his hands. And as I said, I just can't subscribe to the idea that there's 3 worse teams than Everton at the moment. Yeah, there is 3 worse teams. Yes, there is worse teams than Everton, as in maybe Burnley, Watford. But is there 3 worse teams than Everton? Well, the other fight for that place is, your Norwiches, your Newcastles. Well, Newcastle have just beaten us comfortably today. Have got a lot of fight, got momentum about them, and look like they're going to actually use that momentum to take them forward. Norwich have won 2 out the last 2, got momentum. If they get a result tomorrow, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being super negative. Maybe I'm not seeing the actual, the facts and the fact that there's still a lot of games of football. And maybe I'll be sitting in the summer laughing, saying, remember when we sat on the steam and thought we were getting relegated? That was funny, that. But I don't know. I really, really don't know. If I'm wrong, please let me know. Please let me know if I'm wrong. I was going to start naming players who I thought were poor today, but as I said, I think they were all poor, including the substitutes that come on. Other than Anthony Gordon, who worked his absolute bollocks off, I don't think there was one Everton player who you looked at and said was particularly good. Even Dele Alli and Donny van der Beek weren't particularly good. Difficult circumstances, of course, but they weren't good worthy, let's be honest. The back line was abysmal. Falkenberg says, did Mikalenko have COVID? Supposedly, yes. Well, it was an inconclusive COVID test, so he wasn't able to play. The midfield were abysmal. Gomez back to his usual self. Alan, not very good. And the forward line, other than, as I said, Gordon, who worked hard. Ali was the wrong substitution, in my opinion, Dele Alli. And Richarlison, I think, ran round and tried to make things happen, but his movement wasn't great, and he was very much isolated in terms of the quality that he had into him. And yeah, it's again, you look at where we are. We've got 19 points. The old sort of saying is that 40 points and you'll survive. 40 points. If you get to 40 points, you'll be all right, and you can survive on less than 40 points, of course. But let's use the 40-point model now. That's 21 points we need to gain out of the next 17 games. Now, yes, of course we can do that, but how are we taking 21 points? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. 7 wins. 7 wins. Where are 7 wins coming from? Now, yes, we might survive on less than that. I'm not saying we won't, but this has been a truly, truly, truly heartbreaking and gutting season. And we've had seasons like this before where we've escaped relegation because there's been 3 worse teams than us. However, is this season the time when we just don't escape it? 6 points out of the last 40, says Mayo. And we're supposed to believe we'll get 21 points out the next 18 games. 7 wins out the next 18 games. I don't know. So much more rides on the Leeds game, I think, as it's going to show our fighter owns his catch. Well, that's what I said. Now, the only thing now that I'm sort of holding on to is our home form. If we can put performances in at home and get results and wins at home, then maybe that will see us through. But if we turn up on Saturday and we lose to Leeds and we lose in a similar manner to what we've lost tonight, then, you know, we're in trouble now. But Jesus Christ, are we in big trouble if that's the case on Saturday? But look, there you go. We are going to finish it up there then. I don't want to sit here and be negative all night. I say that. We'll literally be doing the play ratings in about 3.5 minutes. So join us again for that one. Dreadful results, dreadful performance. If you have enjoyed the stream, and then please do leave a like. It only takes a second and it does mean a massive amount to me, despite Everton's shiteness, really. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. As I said before, we will be back literally in just a moment with the play rating, so don't forget to join us for those. And yeah, another defeat. Where do we go? Gordon Lee was the last Everton manager to lose his first Premier League game in charge. This team. Joe Philly has donated 79 pence to the channel. Thank you very much, Joe. Really appreciate it. I don't know. I'm lost. I'm lost for words. I'm lost for excuses. I'm lost for reasoning. I'm lost for where we go from here. I'm lost for how we improve. I'm lost for where points come from. I really, really am. How many home games, says Jay? Let's have a look at that before we finish up. Vito Pereira's name's just come up on my Google search. Great. So we have Leeds at home, which is 1. City at home, 2, if you want to class that. Then Wolves at home, so 3. You got United at home, 4. Palace at home, 5. Chelsea at home, 6. And then Brentford at home, 7. And we've also got... Burnley's away, so 7. So effectively, we've got to win every home game. Bearing in mind, we've got City, Chelsea, you know, to play in those games. So Craig ESC's become a member of the channel. Thank you very much, my mate. Really appreciate it. And Chris has donated £5. Thank you very much, Chris. Says awful game, but keep your chin up, fella. Thanks for still putting out quality content. Thank you very much, my mate. Really, really do appreciate it. Anyway, look, we are going to finish it there then. Yeah, if you've enjoyed the stream, please leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. We'll be back with the play ratings literally in about 2.5 minutes, so don't forget to check us out for them. Yeah, Josh, I will send you a message, my mate, as well. Send me a message so I know what your Instagram is and we'll have a conversation. But yeah, there you go. Big thanks for watching. Leave a like if you've enjoyed this, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you after.